there are talks about what should happen in terms of the renovation of the government center of Columbus, Georgia. The parties that are in charge knew that at some point there were going to have to be modifications to the way the government infrastructure is organized in the first place. They knew that there was going to have to be renovations for some form of upkeep going forward. And they had already planned on the fact that at some point, some new image about how the government center here appears was going to have to take place. They also knew that 30 years of planning and 30 years of secrets that were started way back when that government center was first built were within those bounds. That means that there's history in that building. And the only way to evade a pre-organized plan of a consolidated government from 30 years ago is to make it disappear. That means that you gut it from the inside and rebuild it from the inside, or you knock it down. It is my belief, based upon what my actual research and my actual experience from being in this community indicates, that they were going to organize a domestic form of what appeared to be terrorism to make it look like some type of attack or some type of explosion or some type of terror-related incident what happened at the government center. And I was the one that took the initiative to take on the public safety issues, to first bring that to public knowledge and awareness, but make other people aware of the fact that this kind of conspiracy about domestic terrorism was present. At the time, they were selling this whole culture of lone wolf terror attacks around the whole country, making it seem like every community, even some little small in the hole in the wall city like Columbus, Georgia, had these super sophisticated people from groups like ISIS who might be a threat of terror to domestic municipalities. But everybody that's actually in the military, everybody that's actually in policing knows something like that could not happen here without some contribution of parties that are already here. With the fact that we have Fort Benning, we have campus and university police systems in their own jurisdiction now. We have the regular city police. We have the sheriff. We have the marshal. We have the FBI. We have the Secret Service embedded here. And more law enforcement. Nobody can persuade me we don't have enough law enforcement here to cover the ground of what goes on here. We're building a community of a law enforcement system that divides itself from the actual people so that there ends up being more law enforcement officers than there are people. So they built their own kind of citizen population of law enforcement at the expense of the people so that they can manufacture the appearance of whatever they want their crime to look like here. I stopped it. That's public corruption. If you cause an explosion, if you cause an attack, if you orchestrate a rape, if you orchestrate serial murder or serial rape, if you set up something for people to be attacked on a riverwalk, if you are entrapping people in crime, if you are organizing child predator stings, if you are helping contribute to sex trafficking, you are a criminal on the side of law enforcement. That's going on here. And then they collaborated with the press so that they can sell what they coordinated and collaborated upon as a community investment, as a news bite to people outside the community. That's not going to happen here. Now, there are natural criminal events that take place in this community. And when a natural, real danger occurs, you find out that the police and the law enforcement system is nowhere to be found. Because they're so busy pursuing what they orchestrated for entrapment that they're not even working the real crime element. That's why it becomes such a chronic problem in this community. And then they think, well, if one of the members of the press writes a bad, ugly story about you, nobody's going to like you. Now the people have the power at their disposal to take over their own information. And if something that the press writes is in contradiction to those facts, the press is liable for that. Now, the reason for this particular program is not about anything that I just described. The reason that I'm describing what I'm describing in that way is because of something that's going on that's not being discussed publicly. And guess what that is? The conspiracy to manufacture what is the impression of things that are public interest. They built certain dynamics and sections into statutes and codes in the law that say that because of public interest, public knowledge, public awareness issues, people have a right to make stories of certain kinds of people, certain kinds of places, and certain kinds of things. So it's like corrupting a noun by making specific things happen at specific points, places, and times and dates in history where they coordinate their tragedy. Nothing's really going on here. And most of the things that are going on are because of deprivation or starvation in some kind of way. And it's not always deprivation and starvation for economics, but economics do factor into it. People are starved emotionally. People are starved sexually. People are starved socially. People are starved politically. All of that stuff is going on here. I wrote a journalist and asked him a simple question not too long ago. I said to him, can a whole town be crazy? Now, how can you say something like that if you're supposed to be a person who promotes the good and the welfare of a community? If a whole community is psyched out, you can't really sell a community to anybody except people who are psyched out with them. And that's what the problem is. They tried to pre-invest in everything that would give them a monopoly-like ownership of everything. Complete control. And then when something or someone comes along that they have no control over, that can expose the trick, they attack it. They're not supposed to be manufacturing and generating with newspaper, radio, and television organizations how to manufacture the false impression of public interest. Public interest is really supposed to be about things that are natural. It's not supposed to be something where you manufacture it and make it up or cause it. Of course it's going to be public interest if you go blow up a building, if you go murder somebody, or if you go have somebody raped or sexually assaulted, or if you orchestrate sex trafficking or something that's going to shock or outrage a large number of people. Of course there's going to be public interest associated with that. But what's the consequence if you actually manufactured that and you caused it and it wasn't really natural? Because most of it's not natural. Who are these people accountable to? Because you're telling me that we have the military, we have a policing system, we have the FBI, the marshal, the sheriff, the university police, and the so-called public safety director and everybody else, but they can't figure out a solution to crime in a small community. How do you explain that? I mean, if you're so knowledgeable, you've got all of the solutions that you want taxpayers to fund, what are you doing with what you already get? You're saying keep paying more for more problems, for more violence, for more crime. Something is disingenuous about this. And then as soon as something really natural and awful happens, you put a big image in the newspaper or you run some news clips in the press that say, oh, look at all of this awful stuff that was happening. So everybody that you went out racial profiling, stalking, harassing, didn't do anything. And you were so busy doing what you weren't supposed to be doing that when the real criminals were out there doing what they were doing to cause real endangerment, you were nowhere to be found. That means you're a lunatic too. That means you need to go check on your psychiatry and your psychology. Maybe you need to go check into a mental health facility. Because something's got to be wrong with you to be dealing with that. And then putting a price tag on the corruption. And this is happening from Washington all the way down to the local municipalities, and we don't have anybody talking about it. If we're going to be paying advertising, we need to be paying for advertising. We need to be advertising with and towards things that make the function of society better. not things that dilute public psychology so that people are in an altered state of mind and non-reality where they think that their virtual reality is more important than what's really going on now. This time that we're in is serious. This is not really a time to be fooling around and playing around as much as people actually are. And the other disappointment and failure is the church contribution to this corruption. A lot of these people are embedded in the churches around here, collaborating with preachers who I see roaming around on a loose schedule, stalking people so they have something to preach about every Sunday because it's not natural, causing crime in this community. Some of these preachers are getting people hurt. Some of these preachers are violent. Don't make me call names because I will. Don't make me call out corruption because I will. Some of them are sex predators. Some of them have more sex at the church than the people that are whores in my uncle's neighborhood. Don't judge me and don't question me if your question is not legitimate. Something's going on here. And for the people who don't need to be in the dark, who are in the dark and don't know they're in the dark, that's what this is all about. There has to be a culture shift. There has to be a culture change. This generation that's coming forward needs to have an opportunity to know what their social responsibility is to the upkeep of society. And if they've been tricked, exploited, and exposed to sexual immorality by the same people who are demonizing everybody else, what does that indicate? I'm not your public moral authority. I don't care about any of that stuff. But you're not going to hold society accountable for something that you're actually doing and responsible for too? How are you going to act like you're immoral? Another person is immoral if you're immoral. How are you going to act like everybody else needs to be watched and it's you that needs to be watched? How are you going to act like everybody else needs to be punished, but it's you that needs to be punished? What's going on with the judges in this community? Can you really remain impartial from the bench here? These people are being bought. So when I see somebody like Art Smith, I value that because I know he's not going to make a premature, ill-advised decision. This Judge Rumor has become more and more impressive to me because I've had a chance to see what this man will do with facts, not just public pressure. Another person that has made some strong decisions that used to be a very questionable character around here to me, I think Judge Jordan has made some improvements. I'm thinking about Frank Martin, who was a pioneering attorney in this community, who did some incredible things to make this community what it is now. And I watched how people betrayed him towards the end of his life, including a woman who tried to make him look like a rapist. What I'm saying is that some of these judges are participating in criminal corruption. Some of these judges are refusing to hold public officials and others accountable for known corruption. And that needs to change starting now.